In this video, I finish off construction and do some basic testing of my frequency counter and time-based generator. First, let's take a look at the electronics. Refer to my video on designing custom keypads for information on how the keypad and I2C interface are set up. For information on how to use the MAX 7219 LED display, please refer to my video MAX 7219 Getting Started. For the code, etc., for making an ESP32 work as a time base and frequency counter, refer to this video. And refer to my video on USB power injectors for information on how to wire up the power injector. Of course, feel free to request the code and/or STL files in the comments, and I'll be happy to email it to you. Now, the actual ESP32 will function as a frequency counter and time base right up to 30 MHz, but this is with a wire looping the output to the input. The reality is that the isolation circuitry has a significant effect on the results. For my unit, I designed the isolation circuitry around parts that I have lying around my bench. These jelly bean parts are really cheap and limited the frequency significantly. Feel free to improve on my design. I've left you plenty of room. A smarter option for the outputs would be the use of op-amps, but I didn't want to use dual supplies and was looking for really simple digital outputs that can be externally boosted. In my testing, it seemed to work happily up to 330 kHz, which is more than enough for my requirements. The output will pull a supplied voltage low, so you'll need a pull-up resistor. The 2K resistor is for current limiting. I am hoping that this circuit will be able to provide a square wave output suitable for 10-volt Euro-rack audio standards. You will need to design your own circuitry if your requirements are different to mine. This is the input. Testing shows that it seems to be good for up to 13 MHz. I chose to use a MOSFET because the gate is physically isolated from the junction. This is the test circuit that I used. Out comes from a time-based output and in goes to the frequency counter input. Both are connected directly to the ESP32. A word of caution. This is the only testing I have done, so if you are making one of these, I suggest breadboarding your isolation circuitry and testing it first. First things first, I have to drop everything and grab a package from the letterbox. As always, Just Wait package their goods really well. So far, I've never had anything arrive damaged. I'll get it open. If it's the last thing I do. The circular recess was for a piezo if I decided to use one. I didn't end up doing it because the tone function overlaps the timers used for the counter. There's other ways, but I really didn't need a tone signal. Look at that. The quality is so good. When I started writing the software and experimented with the Timebase generator, I found operation was unreliable with 3, but worked perfectly with 2. Since I only really needed 1, I did not bother to try and fix the library, and instead just stuck with 2. This freed up a mode LED, so I decided to implement a musical tuner. This will make more sense later. I decided to use a perf board behind the LEDs and sockets to make the connections tidier and stronger. It also allows the ground connections to be commoned together and the resistors to be fitted. The LED display module fits alongside the perf board perfectly. The internal clearance is also perfect. Yes, it's crooked. The other 3 sockets were soldered off camera, as it's much easier when the working position is not dependent on a camera. I also fitted the resistors off camera. Here is the basic layout of the front panel. Here is a keypad with the pins desoldered, ready for the wires to be soldered. As you can see, the LED display is a perfect fit. The LEDs have been soldered here, and as you can see, the cathodes have all been connected together to a common ground rail. This is the ground socket. This is the frequency input socket. This is the Timebase 1 output socket. And this is the Timebase 2 output socket. This photo was taken before the resistors for the LEDs were fitted. The LED connections from this board will go straight to the ESP32. It's also worth noting the mount for the USB-A breakout board bolted in place. I ran out of toggle switches, so I've borrowed one from another project. I'll need to buy some more. This will be the master power switch for the 12-volt input at the rear of the case. This switch is for the power injector. Turning it off will provide data and ground connections only, with the attached device needing to rely on internal power. Here is the partly assembled front panel. You can see that the master switch is missing for now. These are the modes and connections. This is the ground connection. This is the input socket and frequency counter LED. This is the instrument tuner mode LED. There is no socket, as the signal comes from the frequency counter input. Note that since both of these modes relate to the same input, which has a yellow socket, these both have yellow LEDs. This is the LED and socket for Timebase 1. This is the LED and socket for Timebase 2. Note that both the Timebase outputs have blue sockets. For this reason, they also have blue LEDs. A bit blurry, but this is the inside of the chassis. The LED display isn't glued in place yet because I'm going to try to find some kind of red filter plastic to glue in front of it to make it easier to read. The 3 input and output wires were tinned, ready to connect to the transistors, but I decided to design better circuitry later, so the wires are just soldered together and covered with heat shrink so the connections go straight to the front sockets. Since I have run out of SPDT toggle switches and I'm not happy with my design for the interfacing circuitry, I've decided to leave it as is and redesign it later. For now, I'll have it set up out of the way, and when I need to use it, I'll experiment with some interfacing options on breadboard. When the toggle switches arrive, I'll wire up the USB power injector. I love how this turned out, though after I glue the keypad in place, I realized that the numbering is asked about, and 1, 2, 3 should be the top row. And here it is, set up, ready to use for 3.3 volt logic. Before having a play with it, I'll recap what the red and green buttons do. The red M button switches between the 4 modes. The 4 LEDs show what the mode is, and whilst the button is down, the display tells you what the mode is. The E button puts it into edit mode if one of the time bases has been selected. 2 decimal points frame the digit being edited. The S button saves the time base being edited. The C button cancels the current edit. When editing, the green arrows move the cursor. When in frequency counter or tuner mode, the 1, 2, and 3 keys select the resolution. The higher resolutions are slower to refresh. So let's have a quick play. Yep, I've got it powered off a 9-volt battery. Select the first time base. Go into edit mode. Enter 1000. Save it. Now select Timebase 2. Go into edit mode and enter 25,000. Now save it and go back into frequency counter mode. Connect the frequency counter to Timebase 1 and check the frequency is correct. Now test Timebase 2. Now select tuner mode. 1 kHz is closest to and just above B. The decimal point represents the correct frequency, and the line to the right indicates that it's too high, acting a little like a meter. The position of the line indicates how far off it is and in which direction. Yes, I fitted the switch upside down. A word of warning though. It turns out these keypads come in different pinouts. I learned this the hard way. The one I used in the prototype was not the same one I wired up in the final unit, and I ended up having to swap it for the original and remap the keys. From here, I'm going to look at using a TL074 op-amp for the level conversion powered off the 5-volt rail by using virtual ground design. This will be something for the future though, as it will take a bit of experimenting.